So, though it looks like you unmuted, Conway. Did you want to speak?
Yeah, thank you. So I you were talking about um how we may want to be getting something out of our meditation, right? So
Yeah.
you
There's a
probably
gain.
remember, pardon me?
There's a gain that you're
It-
wanting. Yeah.
yeah, and I'm trying to avoid suffering. That's
Yeah.
the right.
Okay.
So
And
I
that's okay. That is why we do this practice, is to learn how to suffer less.
right.
Yeah.
And which I think over time that really works well. But in the moment when I'm suffering hard, like a
Yeah.
meditation session isn't going to take away the pain that I'm feeling.
Exactly. Yes.
So you may recall that over the years, I've talked about different sensations around my heart and in my chest. And so I'm having another round of that, which, is, I think the term for it is anxiety related chest pain.
Yeah. So it's not angina. It's anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've been to the cardiologist, but when it is happening, it is really difficult
Mm.
to not go to the worst case scenario, even though I've been through this before. And so, I am upping some of my practices to try to smooth things out in general,
Yeah.
meditation, some yoga.
Yeah. Just to bring your nervous system down a bit.
Yeah,
Great.
and it doesn't always work, right? And
I
so, and
know.
often when I'm meditating, I'm having those experiences sometimes, fairly often, and so, the invitation to sit with it, well, when it's like, if it was my knee hurting, that would be a little bit different, right? But it's like my chest hurting
Hmm.
in the area of my heart, so
Because your mind would make more of your heart hurting than it would your knee.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if your brain really hurt all the time, you'd be more concerned about that too.
Hmm.
So, um, I'd like to read something that I found, and then I would like to get a little bit of feedback and some reflection on your part. But
Sure.
so I was reading, I think it's the Mindful website, and they're talking with John Kabat-Zinn. I think that's his name, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I was doing some reading about loving kindness meditation, which I think in this particular case, this is super helpful to do loving
I would
kindness
actually,
meditation.
yes, I was going to say that I would recommend something like that with this,
Yeah.
rather than just feeling the sensations of your heart, which is kind of a vipassana approach.
Yeah.
Like actually send yourself love and be with yourself as you're hurting in that way would probably be more appropriate for this case.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, I think so. Um, so he says, this is really helpful. He attributes these following words to someone called Bob Sharples. And he says, don't meditate to fix yourself, to heal yourself, to improve yourself, or redeem yourself. Rather, do it as an act of love, of deep, warm friendship with yourself. In this way, there is no longer any need for the subtle aggression of self improvement or the endless guilt of not doing enough. It offers the possibility of an end to the ceaseless round of trying so hard that wraps so many people's lives in knots. Instead, now there's a meditation as an act of love. I love that. And
Beautiful.
yeah. And so, but it also describes pretty well what I'm doing, which is, um, this the not subtle aggression of self-improvement, but the endless guilt of not doing enough. You know what I mean?
That resonates with you. Yeah.
It does. Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful. That's very well stated,
Hmm.
I think.
Yeah. So, um, do you have any other suggestions, any kind of guidelines, any kind of,
Right. My general sense is to be present with yourself in those moments of suffering when your heart is anxious. Um, when when you want to change it, or I would even say get rid of it,
mhm,
there is a way that you're actually rejecting yourself
mm,
in those moments and making it worse.
mm,
It's why I was thinking loving kindness, to be friendly towards this vulnerability in your being that's being expressed by the anxiety in your heart, something that's feeling deeply vulnerable. And for you to turn to that and to try to be close to it, it's not about making the anxiety go away just because it's unpleasant and it's disturbing. That's a kind of a self-rejection. That's a kind of a pushing it away. In my experience, when you push something like that away and it feels pushed away, it pushes back, you
yeah,
know, and becomes even more persistent. Whereas if you can just, however, turn to it with friendliness, my image of it is that you just hold yourself warmly as this being with some anxiety going on in your chest, just like you would hold an anxious child,
mm, yeah,
and that kind of touch and acceptance, containment, all of those things would be exactly what a child would need who was afraid.
mm,
And that's how I would approach yourself in these anxiety periods. So Win,
Good evening. So you said something that kind of intrigued me, and you were talking about pleasure, pain, and maybe it was as you were going out to the mailbox, and um, you were talking about when you kind of clenched and tightened to the cold and the discomfort, and you said something like, if you can kind of get past that and not do that, it opens up possibilities, and I think I know what you mean, but I'd be interested to maybe you said something like it gives you a certain power or whatever.
I think freedom might have been the word that I used.
Oh, right. Yeah. But what did you mean by that? Because what I'd like to do next time is stop clenching, kind of have that insight so I don't try to push it away, whatever it is.
Yeah. I mean, the easiest way to switch it is from kind of a stance of, I don't like this, to what is this like? What does the cold on my face actually feel like? You know, what is that damp cold? What is it actually like? Um, and when you make that shift to just being curious and wanting to understand it, actually experience it, there's usually a relaxation that follows just quite naturally from that. You don't even have to relax if you're actually turning towards it with interest. The relaxation is just automatic. Um,
Hmm. Being curious seems to help a lot of things.
Being curious helps a lot of things. It's one of the most powerful tools in the tool belt is curiosity, interest in knowing it, being open to the experience of cold. And what is that like? I mean, I'm not sure, I was doing the cold shower thing. It was mostly because of some inflammation in my body and it's supposed to be anti-inflammatory and so forth. I'm not sure that it actually worked that way. But what I did find really interesting and helpful was that I relaxed the clench around that cold water hitting. There's just a way that I've watched the mind struggle. Okay, am I going to actually do this or not? And resist and resist. And somehow it just got so easy if I just did it. Didn't didn't stress about it. And when the cold water hit, it automatically, really, I just it's kind of, you know, there's a shock that happens, um, and it's okay. But there's some way that I learned that it's possible to just open to it. Um, I don't have to have the reaction. And there's some part of me that thought that like clenching against it was going to make it better. It doesn't actually, that kind of clench. Oh, I'm just waiting till this is over. I got to get over this. It's awful. All of that is actually making it so much more suffering than just cold, cold, just the experience of cold. And then the mind says, oh, I'm going to be cold all day because I did this. Actually, you're not, as it turns out. So that's the invitation of cold is just what's it like? And can I actually go out into the cold and not feel like I have to clench against it? See what that's like. Head out your door tonight. It's fairly cold out there. If you're a cold averse person, um, go out without a jacket on. Just stand there for a little while. You don't have to go out there till you're chilled. We're not looking for great feats of asceticism here. How's that landing, When?
I like it. The one thing that comes up is there's pain or discomfort that you can kind of control, like you're out for a run and you can slow down, or you can turn the cold water off. But then there's pain or discomfort. Let's say you're in a small space, like on an airplane. You don't like small spaces, but you can't get off the plane because it's in mid-flight.
Yeah.
That's where it seems to be really hard to engage, the curiosity over the wanting to push it away and get
Yeah.
panicky.
Yeah. So another option is to be present with yourself, just like I was talking to Conway. When you're having a difficult experience, you can show up for yourself, like witness yourself that you're
Mhm.
having a difficult experience. It's hard to be confined in that seat. There's something in you that is really having a hard time with that. Can you turn towards him? Can you get closer to him? Whoever that is having a hard time. So when you might first see, can I relax around that? Can I be open to it? And then you find you can't. you know, there's something that's really like stuck in a particular experience. And then it's like compassion. Can you be
Mm.
compassionate towards this experience of whatever that is that confinement brings up for you? Because, not everybody suffers that much in airline seats, but some people do. I don't know
Right.
what it is, what it touches in some people around that sense of confinement, or even just to be up in an airplane and to realize that they have no control whether it crashes or lands right. That's a very difficult experience for some people. Um,
Yeah.
and I don't know what magic of the mind makes most of us put it out of our minds and not even think of it. But some people, that's a really difficult experience. And so, in those circumstances, I think it's much more helpful to like show up for yourself. What would it really be to be present with yourself with compassion?
Like it. Yeah, that helps.
All right.
Yeah, thanks.
You're welcome. There's probably a whole talk there about self-empathy and coming back into balance. I'll have to write that down. See, we'll see. Major going off the rails. Hi, Nancy. It's funny, there's a hand not working tonight.
Yeah, I couldn't figure it out. I don't know why, but I've been having other Zoom problems today. So,
Oh,
uh,
it's not just
I was going to share an experience of being profoundly out of balance, and I'm still trying to process it. And I was trying to think about, in terms of the four wins that you mentioned, but none of them quite seemed to fit. And this was this happened the first week of the class while I was on a yoga retreat, and I was having this completely blissed out experience in the Virgin Islands with this fabulous yoga and meditation. And I was like 5 days in. So, I'm really in this seemingly great place. And then for the most part, we were in this very remote place, but this one evening we were going to go to this restaurant on the island where there was open mic night. And so the whole group, or most of the group, went, and my husband really wanted to perform at open mic night. And uh, it was much, much more professional than we were we were anticipating. I mean, the level was amazing, and he did perform, and it bombed. I mean, everything went wrong. It was bad. It was terrible, and I just um, I was just like knocked sideways by this. I think, like, I mean, part of it, I was like dying for him, you know. But if I'm honest, like, I think I felt shame. And I was trying to think about the four wins, like, none of them quite seem to fit, except maybe
repute and disrepute.
fruit and
The
disrepute. Yeah,
different way to translate the pair of blame, blame, and loss is repute and disrepute.
yeah, yeah. And it was so humbling. It was so humbling for me because um, I was just faced with like how important it is to me to look good, you know,
Mhm.
and in the midst of like feeling, 10 minutes before pretty enlightened. And I think also why it had such an effect on me was that seemed so unfair. Like, you know, uh, something about uh, because I was on this retreat and love and peace and da da da, and then like out of nowhere, this thing can come and knock you down. Uh,
Mhm.
Something like that. It just really threw me for a loop. It took me days to recover. And what's funny is the very next day, the group internally was having um, a talent show, and my husband was like right on planning his next act, you know. And so like he got over it like really quickly and he performed the next night, you know, and I was just still.
Yeah. I mean,
So
it sounds like it went into your body in a certain way.
yeah, yeah,
There was this kind of freeze, that sort of shame freeze.
yeah,
I think of it as like a shame attack. Um, it's odd that in the diagnostic manual, there are panic attacks. There's a code for panic attacks, but there's no code for shame
shame
attacks.
attack.
I actually think they're completely real, that you have a shame attack. And it tends to be this kind of freeze experience. And then your mind tries to like get out of it, but it's really somewhere in
Yeah,
your
yeah,
body.
I was triggered for sure. And yeah, something like my autonomic nervous system just went into some other state. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so interesting that, I missed the first class and then, thinking about the topic of balance, that was just so ironic.
Yeah, well, no, it's not ironic. You're almost inviting it to take a class like this, you know, because yeah, it happens. Getting imbalanced happens. And you discovered something really important. It's just how important looking good is to you,
Mhm.
you know. Um, and so that can be just a place to play the edges a little bit. That was an extreme one. We're not necessarily looking for that, which was really automatic and autonomic, even in terms of the nervous system. But there may be other ways that you can begin to see that kind of going on and the fear that's underneath it.
Mhm.
Um, what if I'm not seen in a good light? Um, I mean, I think I share this with you, Nancy. I share this quality of
Yeah.
wanting to look good. And it's easy to look good as a meditation teacher, I have to say. It actually is pretty easy. There's a lot of other arenas in life when it's not as easy. Um, yeah, but that's the invitation, is to find, well, what is that? Can I just be relaxed amid someone perceiving me as not whatever, not looking good? In this case, it's interesting because it wasn't you, it was him.
But
But
it felt like it was.
they're like extensions of our ego, our spouses.
Right, right.
If they don't look good, we don't look good. So
Yeah. And I realized like, you know, because that is strong in me, I tend to play it safe, and it's and and my husband doesn't, and that's probably part of the attraction,
yeah, it's probably part of the attraction, is that
Yeah. But
he doesn't contract around that much.
right. So yeah. Anyway, that's my share of out of
All right,
balance.
thank you for giving us an example of balance. It happens. All right, thanks. All right, let's see. We only have a couple of minutes. Probably not. I'm not necessarily going to field another question, so I think I'll just maybe remind you here of the challenge this week. See which of those four is yours to really work with. You might know just in listening to my talk which one you want to work with. Um, I wouldn't work with them all at once. It's just a little too much. But pick a pair and see which one you want to kind of look at this week. See what gets you off balance. See if you can just widen that margin of tolerance. And And if you can't widen that margin of tolerance, if there's something inside you that's really like clenched and unable to unclench, try the compassionate route. Try just showing up for yourself and just witnessing how hard something is for you, whether it's a chronic pain that you just hate or something else, something that embarrasses you. Okay, so be well. I'll see you in February.